Hello and welcome to this edition of Beyond the Politics, our regular examination of the events happening right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me today, a very special guest to almost start off our 2024, the commander of 8th Wing CFB Trenton, Colonel Leighton James.
Good morning.
And good morning to you.
Great to be here.
Good to be here. So, first of all, you're in a very unique position, a position that very few people rise to. How does it feel to be the commander of 8th Wing CFB Trenton?
Well, it's a huge honor, first of all, to be the commander of 8th Wing. It's a massive wing. We'll talk more, I'm sure, about what the wing does, but even to be thought of as a potential candidate was a huge honor. And it's a job, any job of command. There's a certain amount of humility that has to be in place when you're executing the office of the commander. So. I'm honored and humbled and very happy to be back in Quinte.
So what have the first few months been like? We'll talk about the transition, the selection process in a second. But now you've been there for a few months, you've had a chance to kind of get your legs under you, get a real feel for what's like in the big chair at the wing. How have those months been and how have things been taking shape?
Well, I think you said it well, getting my legs under me. Initially, it's a lot of information coming from various places very quickly, so it's a little bit daunting. But the first few months have been very busy, but also very rewarding. I'm able to see, I started in October, able to see the wing through sort of the fall period, which is a United Way period for giving, and then into the Christmas period where we get to celebrate a little bit with the members at 8th Wing. So I feel very welcomed by both the members at the wing and also by the community.
Okay, so let's talk about the selection process. So we won't talk about what happened before, but from your perspective, once the change was beginning to happen, when did you know and what was the selection process like?
So I knew in early September. It's actually funny. I was working with Vice Admiral Bob Ochterlony and Canadian Joint Operations Command in Ottawa, and we knew that the selection process was going to take place, and he called me into his office and he said, LJ, there's only a few people in the Canadian Forces who are able to command 8th Wing based on their resume and their experience, and you're one of them. So I want you to know that if you get the call, that you have my blessing to go to 8th Wing. And sure enough, a day or two later, the process began. It's a very lengthy process, although my process was compressed quite a bit because of the situation. So I found myself traveling with the commander of CJOC and then having to commandeer someone's video terminal or computer terminal because I had to have an interview with some flag officers to prep for this position. So it was a little bit hairy, a little bit crazy, but every step was followed, and my process was just a little bit more compressed.
Yeah, and we talked about this beforehand because, of course, for those of us who aren't in the military or perhaps couldn't see how things were done when they were done so quickly, our thought was, do they have to advance someone or skip a step or whatever? But there's a mandatory training course that happens before you get to that point, and you had in fact just completed that. So the timing in some ways was good because you had basically done all the things you needed to do beforehand already.
That's correct. All the stepping stones required for my career were in place to take a wing. We have a pool of individuals who are able to take a wing, and my experience lends me towards 8th Wing specifically. So all those steps were in place. It was just a matter of vetting my background, making sure I was appropriate for the job, and going through an interview process to ensure that my vision for the wing was aligned with the vision of the RCAF and the Canadian Forces, and ultimately the Commander of the Air Force.
Now, command. So, of course, you are the commander of 8th Wing CFB Trenton, but you've had other commands, and that's the usual process of advancing and preparing someone like you for this kind of role.
Correct.
So, how does it compare having command of all of 8th Wing CFB Trenton as opposed to the other more unit or squadron commands that you've had before now?
Well, squadron level command is very unique in that you are at the tactical level and you're seeing how the operation plays out. In my case specifically, search and rescue. You're seeing how that operation plays out on a day-to-day basis. So you're with the members who are carrying out the operation, and in some case flying with them actively, so that you have a good sense of what the pulse is at that tactical level. Now, the wing is still at the tactical level, but there's all of the squadrons who are associated with what 8th Wing does. So I'm a little bit more removed from the day-to-day operations, and the wing runs itself, but it's nonetheless an incredible experience to see what 8-wing outputs each and every day.
Now, your experience as well is a little different. The background of each commander, of each officer in the Canadian Air Force, of course, is shaped by their individual experiences. At first, of course, everyone has the dream of flying. But what that looks like, where that happens, how that progresses is different. Now, your experience is a little different from some other former CFB Trenton 8-wing commanders because you actually have a predominance of time in search and rescue specifically.
Correct.
Do you feel that helped you? Can you talk a little bit more about that and how maybe that helped uniquely prepare you for this role, since search and rescue is a huge part of what CFB Trenton does?
Well, I could speak to that at length. Search and rescue is a huge part of what CFB Trenton does. Typically for the commander of 8-wing, the background of the individual has a strong air mobility component. That's flying big airplanes all over the world with cargo to support the Canadian Armed Forces. Now, for my background, I flew the Hercules, which is a large aircraft, and I did a lot of cargo component type missions with that aircraft. So I understand how air mobility is executed, as well as some of the deployments I've done were specifically related to operations, which is heavily, the center of gravity is in air mobility. So I understand that aspect. But the unique part of search and rescue is that when the red phone rings and you pick up that phone, you're never quite sure what you're going to get on the other side. So you pick up that phone and you say, they did what? And they're where? and what's happening? And you want us to do what? So there's an uncertainty associated with search and rescue. And I think for the job of the wing commander, that uncertainty and ability to contend with uncertainty is a key part of the job. So I pick up my phone even today as a wing commander and I'm like, what happened? And how are we going to solve that problem? And how are we going to proceed? So there's a lot of components in search and rescue in that context that I think have stand me in good stead for being 8-wing commander.
Yeah, of course. One of the very first things that is going to be happening that people are going to be talking about all year long is, of course, the last weekend of June. As we enter 2024, it's an air show year at CFB Trenton.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, what's it like to be taking over while that's happening, and how much is the excitement already building?
Well, you know, just to become the commander of 8-wing CFB Trenton was a huge honor, but I get to command during the RCAF centennial year. And there's a huge amount of buzz associated with the year. The air show, as you mentioned, is the focal point, I'll use that word, for our activities for the centennial year. We are expecting, we have allotted tickets for 60,000 people each day on the 29th and 30th of June, so Canada Day weekend. And already there's huge buzz. We have opened up both Facebook pages and ticket sales. It is Quinte airshow.ca for those who are interested in getting tickets. And we've purposely made it so that this is affordable. Kids under 6 are free. Parking is free. We like to have the tickets. The tickets are around the $10 range for most folks, and there's family packages to encourage more people to come out. Of course, we can't control the weather, but we have a great show in store for people. And the wing is working very hard to showcase what we do for those 2 days. We have a team put in place to make sure some of the lessons learned from 2016, which is the last time we had an air show, are learned. We've lost some corporate knowledge in that way, so we have some of those same members who worked on the 2016 show on the committee and working for the 2024 show. So we are very excited. And by the initial response for ticket sales, there is excitement out there. It gives us an opportunity to open the doors a little bit. We tend to be a little bit of a closed community, the military, from the operations side. It gives us an opportunity to show Canadians what their tax dollars are doing and how we are doing things around the world for them and what it looks like.
Before we get into specifics, you mentioned the 100th anniversary of the RCAF, and that should not be overlooked.
Correct.
This is a momentous year for Canada as a country, for the military, for the Royal Canadian Air Force, as the operational side of Canada's ability to support and act around the world for a century. So what does that mean in terms of, because this isn't the only thing, this will be one highlight, it doesn't come on the exact anniversary weekend, but what does that mean? How special is it to be in command of 8-wing CFB Trenton during the 100th anniversary of the RCAF?
It's huge. it's huge. The Air Force has contributed so much to this country. I wear the uniform and I'm proud to wear it. It is an opportunity that I was not expecting to have, but I have embraced wholeheartedly. It's an opportunity for us to be proud of what we do, be proud of our history, to be proud of those who've come before us and who've paid the ultimate sacrifice, to be proud of how we have developed and learned from our mistakes in the past, to show what the Air Force can do for Canadians in the future. It is a huge honor to be part of the Air Force during the centennial, and a huge honor to be commanding what is a central piece of the Air Force during this centennial year.
Now, as part of that, of course, not all of the aircraft that are going to be either displayed or flown during that event are going to necessarily be current aircraft. There's going to be a legacy aspect to it. There's going to be a nod to history. There's going to be visual presentations. There'll be other things. What's it been like putting that together, and how great is it going to be, not only for the public, but as well for you, to get a chance to really see some of these aircraft, which aren't in day-to-day operations anymore, brought back to life?
So I grew up in Hamilton, and I was an air cadet at 735 Firebird Squadron in Hamilton. That's how I learned about my initial understanding of what the Air Force looked like as a cadet. I did my power license through them and my gliding license through them, and eventually entered the Canadian Forces as an officer, and the rest is history. But it wasn't until I became CO of 424 Squadron, the Search and Rescue Squadron we alluded to, that I realized that the Search and Rescue Squadron's namesake city was City of Hamilton. It's the same city that I grew up in. So I have a huge affinity for those very airplanes that you're talking about, because the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum resides in Hamilton. At the Munro Airport there. And they are going to be supporting our air show in a huge way by bringing the Lancaster, the B-25 Mitchell, and the DC-3, the DAC, to the air show. These are machines that give you a little bit of an inkling of what it was like when. How hundreds of these aircraft would fly overhead, and you'd hear that telltale drone, that deep drone of the engines as they'd be going off to do their missions. We're going to get a glimpse of that at the air show with the Canadian Warplane Heritage coming. What
can you say? It's one way. The honorary colonels are another way. There are many ways the base finds to reach out. Yep. What can you say about the honorary colonel program?
So the honorary colonel network is also essential. It provides that link between, I spoke before about how the military can tend to be a little bit closed. The honorary colonel network provides that link between the community and the military. And it's a support network, not just financially, but in terms of morale as well, and outreach, again, to communicate to folks within those spheres of influence what we do and how we do it. We have the Executrek program where we bring in people and honorary colonels to show them a day in the life of. We have honorary Colonel Julie Lang, who is absolutely essential for the promotion of Wounded Warrior, for the Trenton Memorial Hospital. She does all kinds of work to support the military, and she's our primary sponsor for the air show as well. So she goes above and beyond, and her network is immense. That allows us to reach out and touch places where we couldn't normally touch ourselves. So a huge support system. Each squadron has their own honorary colonel who deals with those squadrons specifically, but the most important thing they do is they walk around the lines and they look after people. So it's hugely important for our success.
About 20 seconds left. What message would you like to give the men and women of 8 Wing and the community?
Keep working hard. To the men and women of 8 Wing, to the community, my heartfelt thanks for welcoming me and for supporting the space and all of our noise and all of the things we do. Without them, we could not be successful, so thank you.
And thank you, Colonel Leighton James. You've been watching a very special pre-air show edition of Beyond the Politics.